A lot of people have voiced concern about this new hurricane protection system, and especially as you look at these green lines along this map, especially out here, what we've called the Great Wall, which is sort of getting popularized. The people in New Orleans East and St. Bernard started calling it that first. This 2-mile, actually 1.8 mile long, 26-foot high concrete structure that it also has features that go down well into the earth. So the concern is, all right, you stop the water here, and then where does it go? This was, during Katrina 7 years ago, one of the main pathways into the city. Here was the Intracoastal Waterway, and here was the Mr. Go, the much despised Mississippi River Gulf outlet, which created this funnel and this super highway into the heart of the city, together with this path from the Industrial Canal being open. The levees broke here, levees broke there, and piled up. That's part of the area that water piled up in. Here's the concern. All right, you put this here, and this water comes up, it hits the wall, and it's got to spread out someplace else. Some people have been concerned on the North Shore, specifically in those areas that are south of the city of Slidell, in Oak Harbor, Eden Isles, those areas. Hey, all that water is coming my way. I don't know what the answer is. All I can tell you is what the Corps of Engineers says their modeling shows, and they say that they have run computer modeling in Vicksburg, Mississippi at their ERDIC Computer Center, which is one of the 4 or 5 most powerful computers that they have, mainframes on the face of the earth, one of the fastest. What they say is, if you think of it this way, if you want to think of this as a funnel, if you turn it upside down, you were pouring water or oil or whatever in there, yeah, there's a lot of water that piles up here. But it piles up kind of artificially at the bottom of the funnel. And if you took that and spread it out, if you imagine the Gulf Coast of Mississippi and all over to Lake Pontchartrain, you're talking, they say, about a couple of inches, just a very small, tiny bit of water. That at least is what they say their modeling shows. And as Bob Breck has pointed out, it's very possible that this time we will, in fact, see with this surge in this direction, whether in fact that holds true. It may not be the ultimate test, may not be a Category 3 hurricane, but if you are concerned, maybe that'll offer you some little words of soothing to kind of calm yourself a little bit, that especially with this surge. But the Corps would say, in general, that this will not cause, at least in their view, massive problems on the North Shore.
And John, one of the other things the Corps is really looking at right now, the water levels in Lake Pontchartrain and how that affects the outfall canals. This is a live look at the lake right now, and we've gotten word from the Corps. They've actually already closed. There's 3 outfall canals with those floodgates and the pumps. They've already closed the floodgates of the Orleans Canal. They did that actually last night. Now, the Corps has what they call these safe water elevations, where they feel comfortable the water can only get that high before there could be a problem with the flood walls holding the water. The safe water elevation actually in the Orleans Canal is the highest at 8 feet, but the Corps, it wasn't even close to reaching that, but the Corps still closed those floodgates because they had a mechanical issue. Basically, the gates couldn't close automatically by themselves with a flip of a switch. It's a simplified way of explaining it, but they had to manually go in there and do it, and they wanted to do it before the weather got too bad. So they closed Orleans already, and they expect to close London and 17th Street canals later this evening, as you see the waves picking up a little bit in Lake Pontchartrain. And I know, John, you can kind of point those out in your map and maybe help me explain that a little better.
We'll kind of do a little tandem thing here when we come back to the weather map and show you that when you think about the canals, this is not what Lee is talking about. This is the Industrial Canal when you go across the I-10, the high-rise bridge. So here's the Industrial Canal, which shows up better on the map. But in the UNO area, it goes London. Let me see if I get to okay. So here's the parish line. It goes London, Orleans, 17th Street Canal at the parish line. When you are on the I-10 and you head out into Metairie and you look off to your right, that's the 17th Street Canal. And what Lee is saying is what happened. One of the things that happened in Katrina is that the Gulf of Mexico came into the city from Lake Pontchartrain. We didn't empty it because the sea level was moving in, but Lake Pontchartrain was pouring into the city and then being resupplied, almost like another reservoir being resupplied from the Gulf of Mexico and from Lake Borgne. The reason that happened is because these flimsy levee walls here could not stand up to the height. The water came in, there was pressure, and Lee, basically the walls burst. So what they're saying is that this time around, what they have is these, what has Lee pointed out, they describe as safe water levels. They won't let the level get higher than certain points. It's 7.5 feet in one wall, it's 9 feet in another wall, it's 4.5. And when it gets to that level, then they would theoretically, if the pumps, and here's why it's so important about the pumps and the pumps they built. They're using different pumps than normally we would see during a rain event. If it's an idle, June afternoon in New Orleans and there's no hurricane threat, and all of a sudden out of nowhere it starts pouring crazy and we start looking at the concern. They have pumps that they use to pump out from these outfall canals. In this kind of threat, what they do is they close these gates, and essentially what they've got is these brand new massive structures which are temporary themselves that are on these spots on the lake. They can only get to a certain level. So these pumps have to work properly. There has been concern about these pumps. There's been some concern about London and whether it was at 80% capacity and whether it could handle. But theoretically, in the future, at least as long as we're in this situation with these temporary pumps, if these don't work well enough, then it doesn't matter how much the other pumps are pushing and how much the other canals all around the city are pushing into the basin here. They have to stop taking water from the Sewerage and Water Board, and then at that point let the water level go down to a point that they can operate safely. I'm not saying that's going to happen. In the past, in Tropical Storm Lee last year, they had to close at least one of these. Was it one or two? I think it was just one that they closed. And as a result of that, they'll close Orleans or London first. And as a result of that, they were able to handle it okay. So as long as these pumps are operating fine, then they can keep taking water from the city and at the same time close off the lake.
Another point, it's the Orleans Canal. Two of the 10 pumps are not working right now. They had some mechanical errors with that as well too, but the Corps says that shouldn't be a problem. They think they will be able to keep up with the Sewage and Water Board pump.